Welcome to the Firebelly Social Show. We're focused on talking to food and beverage brands that are on a mission to make the world better.
Hey, everyone. Duncan here with another episode of the Firebelly Social Show, where I chat with founders and leaders of mission-driven food and beverage brands. And today we're pouring something special with my man, Baer. He's a Hall of Fame speaker. He's a best-selling author, and now one of the top voices in craft tequila. And I'm just going to say, we're friends for a long time. So
a long time.
we've shared clients, we've referred things to each other. And today we're going to be talking about his journey, Jay's journey from boardrooms to barrels, and how his new research is shaping the future of tequila, both in the US and around the world. First of all, a big cheers to our sponsor, Firebelly Marketing. At Firebelly, we help mission-driven food and beverage brands create powerful connections and grow their impact through smart, strategic social media marketing. If you're ready to take your brand social to the next level, head to firebellymarketing.com to learn how we can help. So today, let's talk about Jay. I mean, I could say so much. As I said, he is a keynote speaker. He speaks all over the world. He's the author of 7 business books. And as if that wasn't enough, no joke, he is now the world's #2 tequila content creator. I'll add the little asterisk, non-celebrity division. Still a tremendous accomplishment. He's also the co-founder of Slingshot, a network of craft tequila brands committed to authenticity, quality, and culture. And he's got a new project that he's super excited about, the Tequila Seekers, uncovers consumer behavior and market trends, fueling the explosive growth of craft tequila in America. So whether he's on stage, online, in person, or in a tasting room, Jay is all about connecting the dots. And anyone who knows him will know that he's all about insights. And in this case, insights and beverage innovation. So we're going to dive into it. Jay, my man, it's so good to have you on the podcast.
Duncan, so good to be here. Always delightful to connect with you. I'm excited.
Yeah, man. I've known about your love for tequila for a long time, back to our Upland days and hanging out with...
Not a secret.
hanging out with Doug. I remember you giving insights on beer and say it all was coming from a tequila guy. So
that's right.
You have been very open about when did you decide, or how did you decide to go from, not that you've gone away from marketing and speaking, but to put your energy behind tequila?
Yeah. So I had a global digital strategy firm for many years called Convince and Convert. And I sold it almost exactly 4 years ago. And when I sold the firm, I used to record my own podcast called Social Pros. And I did 530 episodes or something, every week for 10 years. And after I sold the firm, I was like, well, I don't have this podcast anymore. What should I do with that time? The answer should have been nothing, but that's not how I roll. So I thought, well, I've been a fan of tequila for 30 years. I got into it a long time ago and have slowly learned more and visited lots of distilleries and all the things. And I thought, well, I wonder if it would be fun to me, if nothing else, to make some content about tequila, try and teach people some things about tequila. And I've done a lot of long form content, books, podcasts, long blog posts, etc. But I'd never really done much short form content, certainly not video content. So I'd never really made any reels or YouTube shorts or TikToks, etc. So I thought, well, that would be kind of fun too, because I learned something. And so I started to make a few videos about tequila, and they were terrible. They just sucked so bad, so bad. But as you do, you get better. And then I encouraged my assistant, now business partner, Maddie Jager, to be on some videos with me, and she's a total natural on camera. And relatively quickly, it became a thing, and now it really is a thing. It is an actual business, and we're really lucky to not only have the ear of hundreds of thousands of consumers and teach them about tequila, but as you mentioned in the introduction, we work with lots of different brands trying to grow the craft category. In the same way that it happened in beer, right? The same way that craft beer sort of took percentages from big beer, the same thing is happening in tequila, and that's what we're working on.
I love what we said in the pre-show, which is, there's all this sort of subjective information and stories about tequila, but there wasn't what you would call like actual data. and insights on
Yeah.
what's going on. And so
Yeah.
you decided, hey, I'm gonna change this.
Yeah, I mean, look, I come at things from a marketing perspective, and I've done a lot of market research, not only for my books, but for clients, et cetera. And yeah, if you're a big company, if you're a very large brand, if you're part of Diageo or Constellation or one of the networks, you have access to a lot of data. You have all the subscriptions and all the software. But there's 2,000 tequila brands right now, and I would say 1,800 of them don't have access to that kind of data. And so consequently, you start making business decisions based on anecdote or what somebody tells you at a tasting or a bar or a festival. And that's kind of a dangerous way to set your strategy. And so one of the things that we have done, I think wisely in our business is from the very beginning, you'll appreciate this. I always wanted to build a relationship with the audience that wasn't dictated solely by Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and X, etc. So while we do have lots of followers there, from the very beginning, we are all about building the list. So now our in-house mailing list is 40,000 people, which is pretty significant. And each of them have opted in to receive different tequila related things from us. So we've got this big mailing list of tequila consumers. And I thought, well, geez, if we have this big list, we can use that list as a survey audience. And so that's what we do. So we recently created this project where how it worked, Duncan, is we just surveyed our audience and said, okay, tell us how you got into tequila, how long you've been doing it, how much money do you make, how many bottles do you have, where do you get bottles, blah, blah, a lot of questions. And I did all the analysis and discovered that, there's a group there that we call the tequila seekers, which is sort of the core tequila nerd audience in the US. And so we use this particular research project to sort of determine who those people are and what make them tick. And this kind of research has never been done in the industry, and it's been really useful for a lot of brands, et cetera.
I think what I really loved about the way you set the stage, which is that really since 2020, tequila consumption has outpaced any other spirit.
Oh yeah.
And tequila exports to the US have increased over 30% in the last few years, retail sales over 13 billion. And there's a lot of people in their 20s and early 30s that, as you say, indiscriminately drink and mix tequila. But,
Yep.
but there's a new group, and the new group is, sir, drum roll.
Yeah, the new group is although it's interesting that they are the new group of tequila seekers are those who are more thoughtful, educated about their tequila purchasing and their tequila trends. Social media has fueled that significantly because there's so many people like me making content to educate the populace to make better, smarter tequila choices. That group is not huge, right? It's approximately 10% of the total consumer audience in the US, right? But it's the same thing with beer, right? It's the same thing with bourbon. It's the same thing with vodka. It's the same thing with gin. It's the same thing with sodas, right? There's always a 1 in 10 group that's like super into it and educates themselves and watches videos and it's kind of their hobby. So the same thing is true in tequila. But what's interesting, one of the things we found in this research is this group of kind of tequila nerds. Actually, many of them have actually been into it for a long time, right? For like 15, 20 years, like I have. It's just that now there are communities. Now there's Facebook groups. Now there's TikTok accounts. Now there's festivals. Like there's a whole tequila nerd ecosystem now that didn't necessarily exist 20 years ago when people started to get into it. So it's been an interesting ride for sure.
And I think you were saying tequila seekers are primarily men, but there is
Primarily men. Yeah.
12% of them are women, and most of them are over 40.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a surprise too. Yeah, definitely. Like I am very much in that audience. So the way I should just say for listeners, the way we defined it, and we didn't set out to do this. Like we did the study, and I should say this is we had 1,500 responses from all 50 states, right? So this is not I asked 10 people, right? This is real research. We didn't set out to study hardcore tequila fans. It's just that's where the data broke and like, but this is what the data says. So to be a tequila seeker, quote unquote, in the parlance of the study, you have to have at least 4 different bottles of tequila in your home, 4 or more. So that was kind of the cutoff between tequila curious and tequila seeker. So amongst these people who have 4+ bottles, yeah, highly male, older than I thought for sure, right? Average age like in the 50s, and higher income. That makes a little more sense because craft tequila is a fairly expensive hobby.
Yeah, no question. And I think this isn't really between the lines, but I'm going to say it anyway. And the tequila seekers are discriminating. They're focused on a lot of things that people maybe in
Yeah.
the tequila space don't even think about.
Yeah, I mean they spend a lot of time thinking about additive-free, which is a big criteria for tequila right now in the U.S. So whether the tequila has additional sugar, artificial colors, et cetera, that's a big kind of filtering mechanism. Sometimes they want brands that are owned by the distillery. They want brands that are owned by Mexican nationals. So there's a lot of criteria that these kind of advanced hobbyists think about before making a purchase. And what's interesting is even in the how long has it been since I started making videos? A little over 3 years. In the, let's say, 3 years since I started doing this, you're seeing a lot more retailers and restaurateurs and bartenders also get more educated and then kind of talk to their customers, and so it creates this loop of reinforcement, which is why we thought it was a good time to actually put real math around this category, not just stories.
Yeah, that's real. It's really interesting too. Some of the things that you identified. Older tequila drinkers like older tequila.
Yeah.
Tequila seekers go down the rabbit hole and find Blanco.
Yeah,
And
that's an interesting point, right? Like, so a lot of people come to the category with reposado tequila, slightly aged. It's typically the easiest to drink, the most flexible. Uh, but then almost every time, not always, but almost every time, as you get more and more into tequila as a hobby, you tend to prefer unaged tequila, Blanco, Plata, Silver, because it is the purest expression of the form, right? You're not using a wooden barrel to change the flavor. It's like this is the look. Craft tequila only has 3 ingredients. It's water, agave, and yeast. That's it, right? It is a hard to make. It's a difficult process, but very simple recipe. And so typically, as you get more into it, you prefer aged tequila less and unaged tequila more. And I don't know if that's equivalent in other spirits categories. Like people ask me, like, "What's your favorite bourbon or gin?" I'm like, I don't have one. Like I drink tequila, wine, and beer. That's it. I drink those three and nothing else. Not even water.
yeah, I mean, one of the things that I really loved was the fact that tequila drinkers, and I can raise my hand and say I'm the same. A tequila drinker would prefer to drink their tequila on the rocks or straight, as opposed to in a
Yes.
cocktail.
Yes, and that was a little bit of a surprise to me. I mean, it's overwhelmingly true, and I think this is one of the areas where this tequila seekers audience, right, this hardcore hobbyist group, is very different than the generalized population of people who might drink tequila now and again, because the margarita is the most popular cocktail in the United States. Last time I looked it up from WSWA data, it was something like 20% of all the cocktails in the country are margaritas, like 1 in 5. And 30%, so almost 1 in 3 of all cocktails in the country are tequila cocktails. So your normal person, generally speaking, accesses tequila in the form of a margarita or a paloma. But if you become sort of one of these tequila seeker kind of this is my thing nerds, more often than not, you're going to drink it room temperature in a glass, no ice, no mixers, no anything. And that is an area where the hobbyists very much diverge from the regular consumers.
And then, Jay, what about the fact that the research shows that there's this dissonance in the market between the top tequila brands and sales-wise or retail-wise,
Yeah.
and the brands that tequila seekers prefer?
Yeah, it's I think very familiar to anybody who has spent time in other bev alcohol categories, right? So Modelo is the most popular beer in the United States. Most beer aficionados don't willingly drink Modelo, right? It's not their favorite. It's not even their top 10. They're going to drink more craft beer, heavier specific gravity, higher ABV, more rare ingredients, different hop mix, etc. Same thing is true with wine. You're not getting a lot of, a lot of wine aficionados drinking, $9 Pinot Noirs. Same thing is true in tequila, right? Like the three most popular tequila, or the four most popular tequila brands are Jose Cuervo, Don Julio, Patron, and Casamigos, right? Those are the four most popular brands. And actually, the top 10 brands of tequila in the US are something like 78% of all sales. Like it is, and then you have 1,990 brands, fighting out for the other 20%. But for the aficionados, right, for the tequila seekers, the nerds, like they want to drink the small, high quality, brands that have a story and a narrative and a history and a romance to them. Although it is funny that in tequila, I'm sure this is true in other categories, I just don't know firsthand. Some of the big brands now, Cazadores, Don Julio, there's many others, started off as kind of craft small brands and got purchased. And then when they got bigger, they had to scale production, and consequently they changed the recipe. And now it's, more of a grocery store tequila and not a craft tequila. And that happens in other categories too.
It's fascinating. I wanted to ask you to share some of the insights around the price of your favorite tequila, as opposed to the tequila seekers group, and the increase from the tariffs or other reasons, and how it would impact their decisions.
Yeah, that was a pretty timely and important question that we asked, because again, we work with a number of brands as consultants, sales and marketing and brand building, et cetera. And when we dropped this research initially, it was like literally the same week that the initial tariffs were introduced. And of course, tariffs on Mexico is a problem, since every drop of tequila is made in Mexico, in a region about the size of Tennessee. So it's not a very big area to speak of, considering how much tequila is consumed globally. And the price of tequila in general has gone up in the last 4 years as consumption of tequila has gone up. And partially because it went up so fast, there was an agave shortage and the price of agave went up, which changed the unit cost of production, et cetera. But we wanted to know, like, okay, if tariffs take hold and tequila is going to have to get more expensive, like what is the price elasticity of that? And it was interesting. We discovered that if you increased the price of your favorite tequila by $5 a bottle, so say from 55 to 60, approximately 80% of the tequila seekers. Now, again, these are hobbyists. It wouldn't impact their purchasing, right? No problem. $5, we got it. But if we increase the price $10, half of them are like, nope, I'd switch to a different brand. So we discovered that essentially the price elasticity is about $5, right? Like you can bring it $5, and after that we got a potential issue, which is a really important finding for brands.
That's tremendous, because I think that gives brands the ability to like make some decisions in these days of shrinking margins. The other really fascinating thing is that a large number of people buy their tequila at local liquor stores or at large liquor outlets.
Yes.
And the way you worded it, e-commerce tequila is significant.
Mm-hmm. And that is another area where this group is very different from the average consumer, right? So this tequila seekers audience is, generally speaking, pretty comfortable purchasing tequila online, and in some cases exceedingly comfortable, because they may not live in a state that has a ton of tequila. And that's one of the things that is maybe a little different than from other states, because all tequila comes south to north, right? It comes from Mexico. You tend to have greater availability of tequila brands, especially craft brands, in border states. And then in a few large states like Illinois, New York, New Jersey. And consequently, you can be somebody who's like, I love tequila, it's my jam, right? And you're in, I don't know, pick a state, Iowa. And there just isn't a lot of quote unquote good tequila in Iowa. So somebody in that situation almost has to be an e-commerce shopper to sort of get the new brands, the new cool releases, the new innovative barrel projects, et cetera, to sort of to be a nerd. You can only be an online nerd because there isn't probably an agave focused liquor store near you, and maybe there is in Iowa. No offense to Iowans, but this is really common. And that's different from your regular consumers because your regular consumers, it all goes back to brands, right? Your regular consumer can get Don Julio anywhere, like gas station, Walgreens, right? Kroger. Like you can get, those popular brands, those top 4, 5, 6 brands, you can get them everywhere. So if that's kind of what you drink, then your need to go online is essentially zero. But if you're like, hey, I need the new thing, like we talked offline about Wild Common, a great brand that I love a lot. They have a new añejo out that's been really, really popular. It sold out in minutes. They just put out their second batch this week. Like if you don't live in a state where Wild Common is distributed at retail, which is only California, Arizona, Colorado, Texas, Wyoming, Nevada, I think, maybe Florida, right? So it's like 6 or 7 states. If you're not in those 6 or 7 states, you got to get it online, right? And people like me who create content on the internet are like, you should get this thing. It's amazing. You're like, well, they don't have it in Iowa. And so then you got to get on the website to buy it. So it is a big difference between the nerds and the regulars in terms of e-commerce purchases for sure.
I mean, you mentioned Wild Common. We talked about them earlier. I came upon it from the guy that used to run the brand marketing stuff, Mark Erickson. But Andy, as I jumped into it, Andy Barton has done some amazing things with that brand. I mean, the
Yes.
photography that brand puts out, the social content is
Yes.
beautiful, just beautiful.
It helps because Andy's background is a National Geographic photographer. So, if they have bad photography, that's a problem.
And
Not good.
that leads me to my next point, and perhaps we could bring it back to the last point, is that you noted that tequila seekers love to buy their tequila online,
Hmm.
and the way they find their content is social.
Yeah.
Social is the
Yeah.
number one way they find their content and their tequila.
Dramatically so. Yeah. It's 2/3 or something like that. That data, it didn't surprise me necessarily, that 2/3 of this audience primarily hear about new tequilas from people like me online. It didn't necessarily surprise me, but it certainly ratified that what I do and my contemporaries do has an impact. Like, and I hear it anecdotally, like people all the time are like, hey, I bought all these tequilas because of you. And I hear that every night in DMs. We also have a big following as do other tequila content creators in trade, right? So bartenders and liquor store retail employees, those kind of folks watch the content as well. And it does matter what we say. And I'll tell you, just as an aside, it's one of the things that's changed the most for me personally since we went down this road is Maddie and I have come to understand that if we say a thing, it actually does matter. And I'm not suggesting that we're moving the tequila industry single-handedly or anything even approaching that, but it does matter. And we are much less likely to slam a brand than we were when we were starting out in the first 12 to 18 months. Because we know now that can really be a problem for those brands. And we've been to so many distilleries. We've met so many people in the industry, who are just doing their job. They're just making tequila, right? And the brand owner wants a bunch of fake vanilla in it. That's not their problem. They're just doing a contract, right? And so it used to be that if we got brands that we didn't like, we would create a negative review. And unfortunately, that kind of content actually works really well from a clicks perspective, but we rarely do it anymore. Now, if we get brands that we don't like, we just don't do anything, right? We send them a note and say it's not for us, it's not for our audience. We not to say we never do anything negative, we do, but it's much less likely because we have come to understand that there is a level of responsibility that comes along with doing this kind of work.
That's amazing. I love the insight about bartenders, retailers, and advertising have almost no impact on the tequila seeker.
Yeah,
I,
yeah, it's interesting. They It doesn't really surprise me though, because if you go into a bar, even a good bar that has a good cocktail program, it's pretty rare that they are talking about the spirit. They'll talk about the cocktail and who made it and who invented it and their riff on it and how they do it differently, and they do a fat wash on the glass, or whatever the tricks of the trade are. I'm not a bartender, so I don't have all that on lock, but it's pretty rare. Like, let me tell you about this spirit that is in the cocktail. Now, sometimes they'll give you a little background, but there just isn't as much education. And of course, bartenders are busy too. They don't have time to like do like a full course on tequila for everybody who sits at the bar. And retailers have another problem because they got to know everything, right? Somebody comes in, they probably just want Modelo, but maybe they want vodka or gin or bourbon or whiskey or rum or scotch, right? So they got to know a little about a lot, and that's also not a great time to do a bunch of education. So it is challenging that people don't get as much maybe education from those people as they should, but I understand why, because it's a hard job. I mean, all I got to do is make videos every day,
Yeah. But it's interesting, right? Because there's so many other parts of food and beverage where demos make a huge difference, right?
Yes. Yep.
We'll talk about, hey, we're going
Yep.
back to basics. It's just going to be sips to lips. But when you go into like, and I'll just pick on Total Wine, right? I love Total Wine. I go to Total Wine all the time. But the guy or the gal who's demoing tequila at
Mhm.
Total Wine probably doesn't know the story. They probably don't even drink tequila. And if they do, they're not going to give you the kind of insight that you want, especially not the kind of insight that someone's going to get from you and Maddie.
Yeah, for sure. Not the same insight that we would offer, but we're also spending a lot of time on this, and we've been to Mexico. We were there 12 times last year, right? I mean, that's a lot of in-person learnings. So that's probably not a fair comparison. But I will say this, because we do some stuff with Total Wine. Their tequila program has gotten a lot better, and their education of their tequila team has gotten a lot better, even the last 12 to 18 months. It's not perfect. Some people are going to be more educated than others, obviously, but there's less of the like, wait, you're telling me that's good, and I know for a fact it's not good. Like, there's less of that happening. They understand that they can't lose the craft audience, and so they've taken pretty big steps internally to shore up their education and make stronger recommendations. They also have some relationships now with some brands like Elatea, which is one of our clients, which is in their preferred program and is one of their fastest selling tequilas now. It is terrific, outstanding craft tequila, and Total Wine is really behind it. So that's nice to see.
That's super cool. I know they do seem to take some risks with their tequila program, which I love.
Yes,
So
yes, absolutely. And you can't beat the selection usually.
now, when it comes down to it, there's all this speculation, right, about what tequila seekers care about,
Yep.
or what I think anyone would think they care about, but really, what do they care about?
Mhm. Well, as I touched on earlier, they care a lot about whether the tequila is additive free. That's been sort of the rallying cry for craft tequila now for about 4 years, maybe almost 5 years. And people ask about that almost reflexively, whether it has additional, excuse me, sugars or artificial colors, et cetera. So that's the thing they care about, period. In fact, 95% of the people say they care about it, which is 95%, right? That is insane.
Yeah, super.
After that, about half care about whether the tequila is made in an environmentally sustainable way. About half care about whether it's owned by the distillery, so we call producer-owned brands. About half care whether the brand is owned by Mexican citizens versus Americans. Many, 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 many brands are owned by Americans. About 4 in 10 care whether the tequila is organic. And then after that, it goes down quite a bit. One of the things that surprised me about this research is that there are 100 and I don't know, there's more coming online. 180, I'm going to say 175, 180 distilleries total in the world, all in the same region of Mexico. 180 distilleries, let's say. Of those, maybe 20, and it's probably not even that many, it's probably more like 15, have a woman as their master distiller, right? So a woman is in charge of making the tequila. So, 20 out of 180 is not a big percentage. It's pretty rare. And there's actually a few good, solid, awesome craft brands that are made by women. And so we asked in the research, like, does that matter to you? does it matter to you that the brand is owned by a woman or is made by a woman? And amongst this audience, no, like 10% care, and 90% don't care. It surprised me a little bit, especially because even amongst women, so female tequila seekers, right? So female tequila nerds, only 1 in 4 of them care about whether or not it's made by a woman. So I thought it would be higher. I don't know why I thought that. Maybe because some of our clients are made by women, but it's not.
Thanks, Jay. Now, I want to ask you to tell the audience more about what Slingshot is.
Yeah. Yeah. So Slingshot is invitation only collection of craft tequila brands that Maddie and I started so that brands can learn from one another and grow together. You're familiar with organizations like YPO or EO or even a chamber of commerce for that matter, where people of similar and similar business type get together to learn from one another. I mean, this podcast is essentially that, right? It's mission driven beverage companies. So imagine if everybody who listens to the show, mission driven beverage companies, actually were in a club together where they can have a private discussion group and they can work on projects together. Tequila business is very hard. It is very competitive. It's very resource intensive. And so we have brought together this group to work together to grow mutually. And it's a real pleasure to be a part of it. We're really excited, and an amazing collection of brands are in the group as well.
Yeah, I think that peer learning is really the best learning in many ways because it's, I mean, think about the research from Edelman about how people trust people like themselves. Right?
Exactly.
There's someone that's walking your exact journey. Here's someone that
Yeah.
is going to deal with labor issues or tariffs or, distribution issues. And I'm sure there's also a circle of trust there. It's like, hey,
Absolutely.
and these are people that
Hugely important because everybody's actually a competitor, right? I mean, ultimately they are competitors, but they realize the big picture is the real competitor is Don Julio, right? And this is the same thing in the beer business. You know this, right? So craft beer, quote unquote, in the US was like 4% of the whole market. And then they decided to work together with the Brewers Alliance and things like that. And then it became 12%, right? Once they were like, hey, let's band together, it became much more of a thing. And that's never existed in tequila. And so that's what we're trying to build.
I mean, I'm a huge, whether you call it a mastermind or a peer group, whatever. I mean, I'm a huge proponent. I really appreciate that you and Maddie are doing that because it's needed and it's a wonderful way to learn. Now, what about you brought this up briefly earlier, storytelling. Like, how important is that in the tequila world?
You know, I think it is really important, and it's one of the reasons that celebrity tequilas do so well typically because it shortcuts the story, right? The bartender, the retailer, the consumer only has to remember The Rock, right? They don't have to remember anything else, right? They don't have to remember Kendall Jenner. They don't remember anything else, right? So being celebrity owned allows you to kind of like, oh, this is the one that's owned by that person. I remember that label and that brand. It's harder for other brands to tell a complete story. And one of the challenges is that the story is really similar, right? They tell the same story. Well, we make this, the traditional way with really old agaves with a high sugar content, and we do it traditionally, and it takes a long time. It's like, yeah, okay, but like hundreds of brands do that, right? And so you have to come up with a little bit of a different story that's not just Mexican heritage and craft and made the right way, because that's almost a given. Like, yeah, of course you make it the right way, and of course it's Mexican heritage. Like, what else? So, like, one of the examples that we like is one of our clients is the brand Alma del Jaguar, which is a excellent tequila. It's called Alma del Jaguar because the brand owner, Macaulay Williams from Memphis, his uncle is the founder of the Northern Jaguar Project, which is a huge reserve for wild jaguars in Arizona and in Mexico. And portions of the proceeds of the tequila goes to fund this jaguar conservation effort, right? So the whole brand, has jaguars on the label, and it's called Alma del Jaguar, and they really lean into this, like, wild, outdoorsy kind of Arizona, Sonoran Mexico vibe. It has a unified thesis that whether or not you're super into jaguars doesn't matter. You're like, okay, it's the Jaguar guys, right? At least there's a hook, right? And so I find like a lot of these tequila brands, that's one of the things that Maddie and I try to help with, don't really have a hook.
Mm,
And that makes it that much harder to market and sell.
that's amazing. And in your studying with these and your immersive experience with these brands, what do you think some of the types of content that convert are with the tequila seekers especially?
Yeah, we've actually done other projects. I should send it to you on what works for tequila brands on Instagram specifically, right? And which brands do the best. Um, so usually there you sort of have the lifestyle stuff does okay. Recipes can do well if they execute it well, right? So here's a new way to make a margarita, blah blah blah. Um, Anything that's like new product innovation, hey, we've got a new barrel, whatever, anything that's sort of like product announcement kind of deal works really well, but it's you can't go to that well very often, right? Like, how many new products can you introduce in a year? Five, four, right? So you can't, that's not a content calendar. That's like, a few pieces. And then the ones that do the best, I think, are the ones that don't necessarily talk about themselves, right? They talk about the category, they educate people about tequila or the brand Haha, which is owned by the Chainsmokers band, country band or whatever. So theirs is super irrelevant. So it's all like memes. It's all like funny memes, kind of about tequila, right? It's like, okay, nobody else is doing that, right? So they have their own, kind of content calendar and approach, which to me, that's the most important thing is to, it's tricky in a crowded category, but what you should strive for is that when people see the piece of content, they know what the brand is without looking at the account name, right?
Mm,
If it's so distinctive and consistent that they know who it is without looking at the account name, that's what you want. Now we have that because Maddie's the only blonde woman who talks about tequila on the internet, right? For the most part, that's not entirely true, but one of the only blonde women who talks about tequila. So when you see Maddie, you're like, oh, it's Jay and Maddie, right? So that we have sort of a visual style that helps.
that's phenomenal. I love what you said there that I think so many founders need to think about is even if you got great tequila, you still have to have awareness. That top of the funnel is critical.
I mean, look, the entire beverage business is about points of distribution. Period. Like it doesn't matter how good it is. It even doesn't even matter how good your marketing is if people can't buy it. Now, e-commerce helps with that, but you can't build a brand on e-commerce alone. It's not possible. So you've got to understand that, like, they're going to assume it's good. Like, you can't succeed if the product is terrible, but you can't succeed just based on product quality either, because there's always somebody else making good product. So there's got to be something else that people remember. And that's got to be the story or the packaging or the marketing or the sales or the people or something else. I would say that two things are true. One, brands focus too much on marketing and not enough on sales in many cases. Like it's a people business, and you can't just like Instagram your way to success. And two, I think brands in beverage, alcohol in particular, overestimate how important quality is. Like you're going to be the best tequila. Like you're not. And so be good, but worrying about being 1% better is probably not worth the time.
That's so interesting because there's so many like brand gatekeepers, like the esoteric brand people on
Yes.
LinkedIn, for example, and they talk
Yes.
so much about you. If you don't have quality, you have nothing. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know about that. There's probably
There's
a
a
lot.
lot of really successful tequilas that are not quality,
Yeah,
like a lot.
that's right. That's right. Now let me ask you this. We got to give a shout out to some of our boys from the old school, right? We got to give a shout out to Jason Falls.
Oh, man.
Jason Falls, Justin Keller.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and
Great. Great guys. And Falls has a lot of spirits background.
right, yeah, and Rohit Bhargava.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
anyone else you want to give a shout out to?
Oh man, all the old school folks. I don't know, man. It's like a trip down memory lane. And
Kyle
what's funny is like
Lacey. Kyle Lacey.
Al Lacey. And what's funny is like I'm still doing all that stuff. Like I'm still on stages every week, giving speeches and writing books and doing all those things. It's the same as it ever was for me. I just basically replaced consulting for major brands with consulting for tequila brands. But other than that, it's the same for me.
I got to ask you some of the essential Duncan questions here.
Yeah.
Jay, you ever since I've known you, which I think is like 2008 or 9 or something like that.
Yeah, that's probably right. Yeah, I think we moved here in 2009.
So I remember going to get Thai food with you and like,
Yeah.
chatting before conferences. And you are such a on the go guy. What do you do? This is, I've met other people who wonder about this. What do you do to keep Jay energized and healthy?
Well, healthy is always a challenge just because of my lifestyle and running around all the time. But energized, nothing. I don't have a secret. I wish I did. I just am like that. Like to an annoying degree. I just have. I guess the reason is my buddy Wade Schultz said this the other day. He's like, the thing about you, Jay, is that you're just thirsty for knowledge. Like I always want to know stuff. My mom was a teacher. My stepdad's a teacher as well, and I almost became a professor. And just like let's learn more stuff. Is that's why I love AI. You just dial up Perplexity or something like, oh, tell me how this works. Boom, amazing, right? YouTube same way. So that like quest to know the next thing kind of keeps me driven.
And let me ask you this: Are you a big proponent? I saw you drinking water. Are you a big proponent of hydration and eating carefully and sleeping?
No, totally not at all. No, I'm the worst. I'm a my behavior patterns are like I was still in college. So yes, I am not somebody who you're going to follow for healthy living advice, which is why I don't make videos about that.
Oh, we forgot to give Doug Dayhoff a shout out. We got to give Doug
Absolutely. Yeah.
Dayhoff.
Speaking of unhealthy living, Doug actually, we now live like a block away from each other here in Bloomington, so we can see each other on the regular.
That's amazing. I remember a funny story when we were working with Upland back in the day. My son Enzo, who must have been, I think, 4 years old,
Yeah.
was having a meeting, and Enzo went to the meeting, and Doug said to him, "What do you think of the pizza?" And he looked at Doug straight face, and he goes, "I don't think it's as good as my dad says the beer is."
Probably true. Probably true.
So what about music? Are you a music guy, Jay?
Yeah, huge, big time. In fact, I started the radio station at my university, University of Arizona. So was into the whole indie music scene from the time I was probably 17, and still go to a lot of concerts. Going to a show on Friday, actually in Evansville. So yeah, if I didn't travel as much, I'd go to a lot more music than I even do. But yeah, spend a lot of time listening to music, watching music. I cannot play a note. I am manifestly unmusical myself, but spend a lot of time at it.
Well, that's amazing. Any last thoughts that you want to share with everyone?
Look, if you're in the beverage business, especially beverage alcohol, it's a tough time right now. There's a lot of headwind. There's a lot of behavior changes. People are a little disheartened. Sales are down for everything except for ready to drink and tequila. But if you look at the history of the category, it's always cyclical. So, as a founder, as a leader, it's your responsibility to make sure that your team doesn't get too despondent reading trade publications and news coverage and kids don't drink anymore or whatever the flavor of the day is. um it's having founded a lot of companies and led a lot of people. It's one of the things I think I'm better at now than I used to be, that I'll leave you with is, yes, your responsibility as a leader and a founder is to set the strategic direction for the organization. But first and foremost, your responsibility is to set the emotional direction for the organization. And that's a responsibility you probably got to spend more time at.
I love that. Let me just repeat that so I make sure that everyone hears it. To set the emotional direction of the company.
Yeah. Yeah. Because everybody's going to take their emotional cues from you. And I realize now that I wasn't always as good at that as I am now. If you show nervousness or weakness or fear, not that you shouldn't be vulnerable, you absolutely should, but people will take their cues in terms of how they feel about the business from you, and you need to understand that.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for saying that. And thank you for all the work that you and Maddie are doing
Yeah.
to make the tequila world and the world in general better.
Anybody got questions? Let me know. Tequila J Baer on Instagram. The research is tequilaseekers.com. I spend well over an hour a night answering tequila questions on direct messages. So anytime, fire away.
And one thing, if someone were to say, "Hey, I'm going to run out right now. I'm going to jump on e-commerce and buy some tequila," what randomly comes to mind?
Well, it depends on kind of what you're looking for. One that I'll do. Let me answer it a different way. Here's three brands that are growing in size, but are still available and are now available at like more stores. Like you might be able to get at a Kroger or whatever that doesn't require e-commerce. And the four, I'd say mention four. G4, terrific brand. G4, Tequila Ocho, El Tesoro, and Siete Leguas. Those four are getting larger and have more distribution. And if you see those in a bar or restaurant, you're going to be in great shape.
That's awesome, Jay. Thank you so much for sharing your time. I really appreciate it. This is a culmination of so many different journeys we've been on that we're on this today.
Exactly.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you to our guest, Jay Baer. He's so many things, but the world's #2 tequila content creator is what we're celebrating today. He's also the co-founder of Slingshot. So if you're the founder of a tequila brand or you work in leadership at a craft tequila brand, it's a great place, great mastermind or peer group opportunity. Check out Jay's his latest research project at tequilaseekers.com to uncover some secrets about consumer behavior and rapid insights that you can deploy. This has been the Firebelly social show where we chat with founders and leaders of mission-driven food and beverage brands, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jay.
Thanks for listening to the Firebelly Social Show. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.